My understanding is that the judgment requires him to put the money up now, pending appeal.
That's the usual procedure.
Right. You think he's going to wriggle out?
I think that. I don't know.
You have the same skepticism, right? There's a sense that, like, it'll never happen.
Oh, I don't think it'll never happen, but I just, having spent all this time in courtrooms, I do feel that Trump's lawyers are pretty good at finding legal wrinkles for delaying things and for making things not happen that you think are going to happen. So, but anyway, yes, presumably he's going to have to come up with hundreds of millions of dollars to put aside pending a final disposition at the New York State Court of Appeals.
Now, let's say he doesn't win the appeal, right? So let's say he actually has to pay $500 million. What does that mean for? I mean, you've reported on this business for a long time, and it's fairly opaque. But what does that mean for the Trump org?
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, it's really a lot of money. Really a lot of money.
I mean, yes,
by any standard. But one of the things that was interesting is in this trial there was a deposition that was done of Donald Trump, and he said, "I have $400 million in cash. I could sell Mar-a-Lago for $1.5 billion. I could sell the Doral golf course for $2.5 billion." I mean, obviously, a judge has just found that those
That's not true.
Lies,
that's literally the frauds that he
that is
just
what he
found
says.
for.
So if he had the money he said he had, no problem. He would have it in cash. But I mean, regardless, I mean, the man has assets for sure. There's Trump Tower. There are these golf courses that he has around the country. He owns enough value that if he had to divest himself of it, he could sell some assets to come up with the money that he'll need to come up with.
I mean, that's the big question, right? Is that if you can't borrow money to do this, and it's going to be very hard to find someone to loan you $500 million, I think, right?
Well, I mean, particularly now for Donald Trump, I mean, he can't borrow from a New York bank. I mean, I do want to say that with Donald Trump, I've gone through a lot of phases of sort of reporting and believing like, oh, yeah, no one's going to lend to him now. No one's going to lend to him after, he defaulted on all his loans. Deutsche Bank would never lend to him again because he defaulted on them. Right. And then they were the subject of this trial. After January 6th, no one was going to lend to him or do business with him. But he finds people, for example, the Saudis, who have been,
ding, 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 ding.
Paying, obviously, Jared Kushner and also
Trump through
the golf courses, through the live golf circuit, which has turned out to be immensely profitable. So there are always people around Donald Trump who believe that if he's president, it's actually a small investment to help him out. Now, I mean, I am saying that in theory. I'm not saying to spend this judgment, but that is how he's kept his business going through all of these years, is by always finding somebody that believes it's in their interest to back Donald Trump. And
yeah, I mean, the Saudis can float him a loan. I mean, it's either going to be he either has to have a loan, right? He either has loan, cash, or liquidating assets, some combination of those, right?
Exactly.
So what does it mean also that you can't do business in New York for 3 years? Like, given the corporate structure with him and his sons, like, what does that mean?
I feel like we really need to untangle that because he obviously is not a real estate developer anymore in New York. He is not really, he doesn't live in New York. He's not a New York resident. He's not building buildings. He's not developing. He can, set up Florida companies, presumably. So, I mean, a lot of his business has transformed over or has been combined with his campaigning. I mean, just, last year alone, some $50 million was spent from Trump political action committees to pay for his legal defense in these cases. So that, has not cost him anything, basically. Right. It's been funded by donors. And he has managed to find a way, which was the subject of the podcast we did, Trump Inc., for a number of years, which was how to monetize the presidency, how to use it to sort of keep his brand going and switching over from business to politics to business to politics. And that is exactly the place that he's in right now.
Yeah, although I don't think, $50 million you can raise in a year, $500 million.
He may have to sell an asset, but he does own assets for sure. I mean, and even if Doral is not worth $2.5 billion,
I think it probably isn't.
For example, it's worth something. Golf, became popular during the pandemic. The value of these courses, which seemed like they were not going to be worth much, went up. So he certainly owns things. I mean, it's not because he's, what Eric Trump was saying, this productive, engaged businessman. That is not Donald Trump. He is running a presidential campaign trying to get back to the White House.
Right. And the thing that the business that he seems best at is raising smaller dollar donors. I mean, that really is the business that he's, I think, is his best business right now.
Yes. I mean, after January 6th, on election lies, he raised vast quantities of money.
Yeah. After the election. Yeah. Right. In that period. So I guess the question is, if it doesn't really matter, you think he's going to sell something and be able to dispose of this and sort of move on?
I mean, it's impossible to predict, but that is one of his options. And that is what we may see. He does have the money. We'll see where he gets it from. He doesn't want to get it from any of those places.
All right, Andrea Bernstein, thank you very much.